Coming up on Behind the Click.
Until you get there, you need to hustle. And if you are the one leaving the office at 6, I don't think you will be CEO.
How did you all take the company from 200 employees to 2,000? Like, what does it take to make that happen? What does it take to take it from 7 million in revenue to over 100 million in revenue?
We created a need, but we did not serve it.
Why did you decide to take on the role of CEO, knowing that this is what the company is going through at the time?
I had come to the point where I wanted to come. I had succeeded. And I wasn't happy.
Do you feel like all the sacrifices were worth it? Welcome to Behind the Click, powered by E-commerce Berlin Expo, the podcast about the visionary leaders, entrepreneurs, influencers, and experts who are shaping the e-commerce world. My name is Janine Heinrich, and I'm your host. And on this episode, I'm joined by Frederike Knop, a leader who became CEO at the age of 33 and has navigated both the exhilarating highs of scaling companies to massive success and the tough realities of leading through crisis. Her journey is one of ambition, resilience, and reinvention. From building revenue in the luxury watch market to steering an e-commerce company through insolvency and ultimately realizing that true leadership isn't just about growth, but about values, balance, and well-being. In this conversation, we'll talk about what it really takes to lead in times of both expansion and crisis, and the personal costs of overperforming, as well as the lessons Frederike has learned about redefining success on her own terms. This is a raw, honest look at leadership beyond the headlines. I wanted to say I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. I'm excited for you to be the first guest as well. And I feel really honored to have you here, but also super inspired by you in a lot of ways. I thought during our conversation when you brought up that you always wanted to be a CEO. So you said back when you were 18 in high school or like gymnasium, you literally wrote in your school book or like back into a yearbook that you wanted to be CEO. And so I think my question is, why? What drew you to really wanting to be a CEO? And then it's also one thing to say that you want to be a CEO. It's another thing to become a CEO. So can you unpack that?
I think for me, it was never about the title. So even when I'm now looking for a new challenge, I don't look for the C-level. I don't look for the director title. I look for responsibility. And for me, even in the beginning, because I had a dad who always had their own business, and I was brought up in an environment where there were a lot of entrepreneurs. I always saw it as I want to take on responsibility, and how can I get as much power in terms of power of decision or power of creating something in an industry or in a more traditional settle. So for me, it was like as high as I can go, I will have more power. I can make all the decisions. I can make sure that everyone is doing great. I can create something. So for me, it was always important to be as high as possible, to have also the biggest view, because like when you're on the mountaintop, you see more than when you're standing in the valley, right? So for me, that was, I think, the threshold in the beginning where I wanted to create, I wanted to manage. I also wanted to be known. It is something that I love to be on stage, even though I'm not a person who loves the limelight, but I love to be someone that people connect to. I love to be in the middle of things. I love to be in the bustle and hustle. So I always thought that sounded great. And also I wanted to set myself a goal that was higher than anyone else, because from our conversation, I'm very performance driven.
Yeah.
So for me, it was, if I set myself, I want to be a manager, well, everyone can be a manager, right?
Can everyone?
In the beginning, when I was 18, I thought so. I was like, everyone, when they work hard enough, because that's how I was brought up. If you work hard enough, at some point in time, karma will come and give you what you deserve. And for me, it was always a manager. Everyone can become a manager. So I want to be the top of the managers. And then, I was growing up in times of like Suits or different TV series where there was always like, when you lead something, when you manage something, you're more important, and there will be chaos, there will be challenges. So I thought it was an adventure.
Yeah.
So that's why I wrote it down. And it's not like a story you tell like, oh, I already want to be CEO when I was 18. No, for me, it was like I wanted to become Geschäftsführer. Okay. Always the male form, because in the past I've only known male managers and male directors. So at this point in time, I was it was like so out of my reach. It was reaching for the stars. So that's
Okay.
what's the biggest wish I've ever had. Also, I wrote down I want to have a dog and I want to live on a farm. So I have to admit the whole concept was probably, it was not well thought through.
Okay. But dog and farm, did that work out?
No.
Okay, there's still time.
There is like, I have to have plans
Yeah.
after my retirement.
I was gonna say, like, you've already reached CEO, you gotta do something after the fact. And I think what I'm trying to understand though is, are these characteristics of wanting more responsibility, wanting the power, wanting to be on top, was that something that was innate in you, or was there a particular feeling of having to overperform? Because the reason I ask this is also personally, right? I think I've always liked overperforming. Maybe there was a part of me that always wanted to prove to others that I can do it, especially if I was underestimated. And now it's so ingrained in me, I don't necessarily always know when to just perform. You don't need to overperform. So how did that relate into this ambition to be CEO?
As I mentioned before, I was always surrounded by very successful people.
Okay.
We have a very successful company business. We have our family business. I have a very performance-driven father, a very performance-driven grandfather. Everyone was always working, even though they were probably in their minds, they were highly successful in their area. From the outside world, someone would have a different opinion. But for us, working and business talk is a daily business in the family, right? Even now on holidays, on kids' parties, like in the breakfast, it's always a topic.
And were the women also as
Yeah,
ambitious?
my
Okay.
mom has always been 100% involved in my dad's business. It's not my dad's business, it's a family business.
Beautiful.
So everyone studied on a very high level, had very high grades. I think in the beginning it was a performance for my parents because I wanted to be as good as my dad.
Okay.
Then it was a performance, I want to be better than my dad, which with school grades, sometimes it's possible, right?
Yeah.
Then I'm the oldest of 3 siblings, so I wanted to be a great role model for my siblings. So it was always, I wanted to be someone that I particularly not thought I was already, I was already at this point. I always wanted to become better. A lot of my self-image was reliant on being better than others. Better, not in terms of being above them, because I always like to be part of the team. I'm never like, still until this day, I would rather work in a team than alone. But for me, this leadership, this leader of the pack, it's something that is ingrained in me. I think because I always took the responsibility, even for my siblings, very early on, and I was always involved in the family business from like 16 on. So I was always part of something bigger.
Yeah.
But in the end, it was so in me, and it's still up until today. It's, if I fail for myself, because no one understands that even not making a deadline would be a failure for me, because I could have done better. I should have done better. And the issue is, I know I can do better.
Yeah.
And this is, so for now, I think the overperforming stuff was, I didn't set a limit for myself. So I saw that there was always something more I could do, something less that I could lose, or like make something perform better, but also make the whole package better for everyone else, that I am never content. Like, I'm happy.
Yeah.
I can sit here today, I can say I'm happy with what I've achieved. Am I content? Am I done yet? No.
I can understand that. And I think a lot of what you said also sounds a lot like wanting to be in a position of influence in a positive way and in all different ways, and being able to influence and shape other people's lives, as well as the impact in the work that you do. And I can also understand this level of feeling discontent, because you know that there is no limit. Like, if you put your mind to it, it can be achieved. So it's like, why should I just stop? Like, life would be boring otherwise. And I think I can imagine, from being in those positions for so long, where you've had so much responsibility in those things, you're like, I can continue doing more things in that way. But I kind of wanted to jump back to your career, because once again, it's one thing to say and another thing to become it. How, for people listening who maybe have a similar ambition, how do you actually become a CEO of a company? Because I know there's people who work at a company for 20, 30 years, and then they make it to a certain level, mid-level management, but maybe never make it to becoming a CEO. So were there any critical steps that you took from 18 onwards, or even maybe during your school times, that set you on that trajectory?
I think the first one was always setting my goals higher than something I thought I could achieve.
Okay.
And yeah, I think CEOs or people in power position have a certain kind of attribute. And the attribute is, you're just never finished. And it would yes, I was in certain positions in my life or certain situations, I was at the right time. And then people made a choice that benefited me. But I was always the one who worked twice as hard. I worked double the hours. I was the person who was the first in the office. I was the person who was last in the office. I sacrificed a lot of my last 10, 15 years to become where I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it would be honest, or I don't think also it would be fair to people who are still working in this direction to say you can become this instrumental in a company or this high of a level if you do not give more than others and if you don't sacrifice more than others. Because no, I don't think you can get there by having the same work-life balance as others. Once you get there, wherever it may go, wherever your final goal will be, I think at this point you should realize that you need to have a balance and you need to find a way to get balanced. Either some people like don't want this clear cut, and this is something for me, like I like to combine work and business and private at the same time. You just need to realize when to stop and listen to yourself and find a new way. But until you get there, you need to hustle. And if you are the one leaving the office at 6, I don't think you will be CEO. And this is my personal opinion. I think a lot of these health gurus online, they try to portray you a different image. If you take a look at the people who are making the decisions, it's all the same portfolio. It's the same kind of profile. It's the people who speak out. It's the people who do not take no for an answer. It's the people who sacrifice their own well-doing or well-being for others. And this is something, for me, it was always important. I'm most likely the loudest one in the room just because this is my character and I'm like very present. I don't have to be right. I much rather surround myself with people who are so much smarter than I am. Because then I can learn, which is something also a characteristic. You want to learn, you want to know more, you want to have more. But also if you have built a strong team, the whole team advances, right? So it was always important for me when I advance, I pull someone else with me up for. And I always tried, yes, I made decisions in my life. Also in this career, you will make decisions where it looks for the outside world like you benefit from it and someone else might have not. But in the end, you need to be okay that you won, the others didn't. And this is something that I struggled with for a long time, to know that, do I really deserve this and others did not get it? But in the end, I worked harder. So if you have a rational thought behind it, it makes absolute sense that I got where I am.
Yeah.
Does it make sense to others looking from the outside in? No, but it's always a very personal opinion about who has succeeded and who has who has earned the success.
So,
and I've had great people supporting me, not from the team, also from the family. And I've also had people who really believed in me. And this is something, why did I raise up that fast? Because I had people, most likely I worked hard for it and I would have gotten it in 5 years.
yeah.
But they gave it to me way before I would have been ready because they knew I was already ready for it.
And that's actually what I was just about to ask you. How much of your successful career would you attribute to the timing, having the right mentorship and support, or the sacrifices that you made? Is there a certain split between the three where you think one was more influential than the other? Or, yeah, how do you feel about
I
that?
think the hard work make so I wouldn't make a split, but I would make a pirate.
Okay.
Like the way you have the pyramid, when you have like the basis would be the hard work, which is a huge base, to be very honest. If you do not work hard, you will not get the other chances. And then it was mentorship, not part or friendship of people, giving me the right input and giving me especially hard input of certain people. Like, you will not get there if you do not start kicking, or this is not the right way, go left. Take a way around, take a longer walk, and you will get there anyways. And then only the top, like I would say, probably if you want a percentage, about 5% is luck. But you will only get in the rooms when you make yourself get in the rooms.
Yeah. With your hard work and making sure you make the right connections during that time. Okay. And so that brings me to my question. So you got headhunted relatively young into one of the biggest, most successful luxury watch manufacturers globally. You like people talk about Rolex, but you got into AP, which is significantly higher. So how was that process like? And what was the mentorship like for you during that time working there? Because you were there for 10 years and you really were pivotal for growth. I mean, you took it from 200 employees to 2,000 employees, from 7 million in revenue to, I believe, over 100 million in revenue by the time you were done. So what was that process like then?
It was surreal in the beginning. Like I was 21, 22 when I
That's
started,
so
right? I
young.
came right out of college. I started college very young. That's
Yeah.
also one of the aspects. And the advantage for them was I was very international, right? So I'm Native American, Native German in my background. The languages are there. I spoke French because I did a 6 months. Some people call it an internship. To be very honest, I was an au pair and I was just in a very successful family. So I was like learning at the same time how business was done while I was like looking after the children. I was just, I had a good profile. Here we are back again to have, if you have a good profile, you will get doors open that others probably don't.
Yeah.
And then I had this architecture background, the construction background, and AP at this point in time was trying to build a new structure in locations, but also a new structure in sales. So they were going from retail to boutique level. To be a part of the most successful time of that company, of the race from they are still top 3 and they have always been top 3, but in Germany they were not known that much. So in Germany only the collectors knew the brand. So to be part of growing, as you mentioned, from 7 to 100 in this market, but also growing from the size of employees worldwide, from being known by name from the CEO to being able to have these portfolios managed of nearly 5-10 million to build a boutique. It was a crazy time. It was so surreal. It was very luxurious, but it was hard work. So there was nothing besides work that we did as a team. The team was a big aspect, but I was still too young. Like today, if I would be in the situation today, I would love the travels and I would love the projects where I was. I still remember going to Madrid for a meeting. I flew in at 8 in the morning at the meetings over the day, and I flew out at night. Today, I would probably like fly in the day before, enjoy the city a little bit, like make it worth my while. To look back at those 10 years, it was a hustle and bustle. It was seeing people perform on a level which I've never seen before, in an international level as well, right? So Swiss tradition meeting French attitude, meeting American way of hustle was crazy.
That sounds intense.
It was crazy to see the CEO, François Benamias, at that time, the vision he had and the relentlessness in which he walked after his goals and the goals of the company, where everyone was like, wow, they are too arrogant. They will never make it this way. Like, they will be successful, but can they really change the industry? We changed the industry from being traditionally Swiss watches to being cool. And this is like, to be part of that, it changes your DNA. Because you come at the point where you say like, well, nothing cannot be done. And this is something I still see when a lot of people speak about like those high scale the startups that then become like unicorns, and they're like, wow, I wanted to be part of the time. I was thrown in a situation where no one expected that. I was nearly half the age of my colleagues, and this very like I was 21, 22 when everyone else was 40 plus. And I had people, there were so many challenges that I could just pick and choose from them. And at one point in time, I had proven myself to take on responsible roles like downsizing, upsizing, and building. So it always made sense for those in power to give me more. So that was just like, again, I worked my butt off to get where I am. But being in a situation where everything was possible and the money was there, which is completely different to whatever came afterwards.
That's a different kind
There were unlimited funds, even if you don't say it right now. Yes, there were budgets, but 10K more for marketing. Pff.
And I think this is where I'm curious, because at 21, getting such an immense amount of responsibility, being really thrown into such a level and such a position, where did you get the resources and tools to know what to do when you were being given these challenges? Like, how did you solve them at the same time? And how did you know what to do? Like,
I think it was a lot of like research, and at that point in time, it was not the area of like podcasts yet,
there's
right?
no ChatGPT.
Like the era of ChatGPT podcasts and like giving yourself the chance to raise up to a higher being came 10 years later, right? So for me, it was reading a lot of books, like business savvy books. It was listening to a lot of people around me, and I love to learn, so I listened to everyone. Making sure that even if I was just in a supportive position, I was always at the table. Like, even if it was just if anyone was looking for someone to take notes, if anyone was looking for a translator, if anyone was looking for someone to go to a construction site, I always went. So I
Okay.
took every single
So you were
task.
very humble about the task. You were like,
I
hey,
took
I just want to
everything.
be there.
I
I'll take it.
cleaned on events when someone needed to like clean the dishwasher. I did that because at the same time I was at the event, right?
Mhm.
So it was like I was part of it. AP family, it's if you're in the industry, this is something that is very uncommon. It's yes, there's a lot of hierarchy and there's also a lot of like activism to become better and advance yourself composed to others. But the family aspect of everyone knew everyone,
Mhm.
and we were at the same time in this bubble, but at the same time also very different from the others. And it's like you were in this family that was created not by nature but by force. It really brought you a point where everyone was also supporting each other, and everyone was, especially, and have to say, like, I only had male mentors,
Yeah.
especially people above 50. They were just sharing knowledge like no other because most of them didn't have children, right? Or if they have children, they were the same age than I was. So we all spent so much time together that you didn't care who you gave knowledge to. You didn't magically disappear when there was an event, but everyone was always there and everyone was always active. So I learned a lot from others. And I did not learn a lot from my peers because I didn't have a lot of peers that were projecting the same kind of
Yeah.
energy and also the same kind of motivation. And also, it's easier to raise up in the ranks if the others next to you don't have the same ambition.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. There's less competition on the way then. And it's also really beautiful that you were able to look up for the mentorship and get a lot from their experience. But what I'm really curious about as well is the nitty-gritty of the how during that time. How did you all take the company from 200 employees to 2,000? Like, what does it take to make that happen? What does it take to take it from 7 million in revenue to over 100 million in revenue?
The revenue aspect, to be, it sounds very arrogant, but was easier than the rest because even up until today, the company does not produce more than 40,000 pieces a year. So we created a want while we actively, at this point, do you hear the we? I'm still in there, right?
Yeah, you're still part of it.
I'm still there. So AP family, we created a need, but we did not serve it.
But how?
We just, because the watches, they start at 25 grand, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
everyone wanted a piece of something that the others didn't have. So it's the I'm bigger, better, the whole
It's the
mentality,
exclusivity. I was able to get this.
exclusivity, the American way of I want to drive a bigger car, I want to
Mhm.
have a better watch, and we brought it we brought it into Europe, and we made it. Events were so exclusive that you could only get in by personal invite. Everyone wanted it. Boutique invites where you wanted to have a spot at a boutique meeting. You wanted to come and buy a watch. Well, you better present an image where you can have our watch. You cannot buy it. We give it to you. And this was something that was in the beginning, like 2016, 2017, was very exclusive. Like this image of you can ask for it, and then we decide if you get on the list or not, was something that at this point in time, everyone wanted it. In the last couple of years, it has changed a little bit because also with like COVID and then the financial struggles of the ecosystem, has gotten into like you're too arrogant. Like I do not have to ask to buy a watch. By this point in time, and it's still until today, you have all the waiting lists worldwide, right? And AP is always together with Rolex and Patek on the top 3. So to get something, you have to give us something. You have to be someone. And you knew that if you were wearing an IP right now, I knew like what you would have had to do to get that watch. So you spent so much money on it, but you portrayed something. Like I made your image. The brand defined your image. Then you have these at the same time, nevertheless, then you're part of a family. You're part of its own ecosystem in an industry. So just by creating a need, a want, and limiting supply, the sales were possible. So the revenue itself was create an image that is so fun, you want to be part of it, and then you tell, maybe next year.
Ooh.
So
Ooh.
then we had like different jubilees at the same time, right? So different watches turned different age, and there was 25, 50 years. So we had cool events at the same time. Then you had other markets open up, for example, through COVID. Different markets in Europe really rose in the ranks and in the importance, and Germany always had the money. So you just had to find the right customers. And by going from full retail, so when I started, we had about 40 positions in retail stores with jewelers in Germany. We went during my time to 10 positions with retailers, but 2 or 3 owned stores and boutiques. So you actually made the money yourself. You made the full margin. And the margin in the watch industry is a completely different ballgame than in e-commerce. So
Gotcha.
revenue is something that, while doing everything, rebranding in the background and operations wise, you were able to do.
Okay. So
what is the big, and then at the same time you need to open boutiques, so you also include more managers, more team members. So you also raise the personality people, and that was the most important part. You needed to have personality people. You need salespeople in every position. You even need salespeople in marketing positions, because everyone needed to sell the brand. So even now today, when you talk to finance staff or when you talk to employees who work back office, everyone has the same kind of attitude. The same. Swiss people are usually very humble. So this is something, you have this humble nobility about it. But everyone is like, I love working for this company. And you can see, like, just last week, I congratulated a former colleague of mine who spent 50 years at the company. He started working there when he was right out of school at 16. And he now went into retirement. Please do me a favor. Find a company right now who's still trying to do that. And it's not uncommon, right? Watchmakers are incredibly loyal people. So seeing when you now take a look back, or if we discuss it with friends all the time, because most of the friends are from the industry as well, right? We say it was a non-starter. It needed to work like that. There is no other possibility. Like, there was no other outcome than it being even a bigger success. Just at some point, the family owning the company, which is still family owned, needed to make a choice. Do we become bigger? They decided no, not particularly bigger in terms of sales. Or do we just create a bigger value for the company by creating a better image? And I think they did that with François back then. They just made the right choice at the right time also in the industry, right?
Yeah. I think that's really interesting that you bring up, because I do think a lot of the points that you've brought up and what made it successful is things that even e-commerce or other companies could use today. I mean, creating this feeling of FOMO, creating a little bit of exclusivity for some brands would work really, really well for them. But more importantly, it comes down to community. And what is in the community is people that are super passionate about it. And I think we're also seeing more and more of a trend now in e-commerce and in a lot of different industries, with the power of community being extremely critical now for success of a business. And this is where I also want to come back to the internal community, which you're so ecstatic about. Even as you talk about it, you still say we, which is like, that speaks volumes for your career there. How do you lead when the company is growing so quickly and drastically? I mean, from 200 to 2,000 people, and you were quite young at that point. So I would imagine that you're now in a position of leadership, but you're also molding your leadership style in the process as the company is growing. Or what was that process like for you? Because the revenue part you said was easy. How was that other part?
Easier, I would say, or like a non-starter, non-discussional point, right? Leading people, I think AP made it very easy, because you only led in terms of knowledge and function. So for me, I was one of the little people in Germany. We were only 15 people at that point in time, and I had responsible for certain people in the team. For example, for the workshop, which was additional 20 people at that point in time. Or you had responsibility for people in other locations, but they were, for example, working together with me on terms of CRM. And there is a difference. They're working together with me. Someone had to have the responsibility, but they were not focused on titles. They were focused on team inclusivity. So you were always involved in a team. You were a part of the German team. You were a part of the sales team. And they were making sure that also whenever we got together, these teams felt like you always brought chocolate, for example, for everyone involved. Got very expensive at some point in time because the lint prices went up through the roof. No, but it's like, you always made sure that everyone was feeling comfortable, because there was no rivalry, because in every market, there was probably only one person like you. Then very early on, I was included in a group of people who were supposed to be like the next management level. So from each of the topics, for me, it was CRM, for example, and customer service, and then more client care, so VIP sales. there was one person in a group and it was like 15 people. Everyone was exchanging. We were having like a similar kind of age, similar kind of attitude. Everyone wanted more than the others. So you bring those people together and they start really pushing each other, but they are in no competition to each other. Because if HR raises up, it doesn't give anything to me besides, oh my God, I'm so happy for you.
Yeah.
But if you put people in complete competition, it doesn't work. So but if you give them as a team, if you raise each other up, you will only provide your others knowledge and companionship.
Yeah.
You just give a little bit more leeway to also making mistakes.
That's such a unique situation, though.
And
I was like, this is something that sounds very exclusive to that industry.
I don't think they made it on purpose. I think it
Right.
was just something they saw in each market or in each area. There were certain people who had more thrive than others,
Yeah.
or more need also to be presented. And then they were like employee of the month or team member of the month. But you needed to give them something that they can really aspire to. We wanted to have something that others didn't, but at the same time, they didn't want us to take off. Like mind-wise, they wanted us to keep us very grounded because that's the tradition of this company, like being very grounded, very family-oriented. So I think that was a smart move at this point. But then also during COVID, like I pretty much built a new logistics structure for Germany as well, because at some point we were not allowed to fully open the boutiques anymore. So we had to make sure that we were still selling the watches, doing it on a very security-driven level, very insurance-driven level.
Yeah.
And at this point in time, you join a new team. So worldwide, there were certain members of the staff who had all the clearances, who were then proposing these new systems, or, for example, getting vintage watches in. You have certain areas. So the company does, if you really want to, you can be involved in every topic as long as you bring something to the table. And this is something that I primarily took after. Okay. Like I took this kind of knowledge of hierarchy is not key. Because hierarchy is actually just something that we make up by titles and putting people in front of each other and telling you, like, you lead the team now.
Yeah.
I was always looking for people in my teams who had a natural tendency to manage either people or lead people, which does not have to be the same. Can also be very exclusive.
What's the difference?
Leading is people who love, like, a leader is someone who just loves to bring everyone together and has more, in my opinion, has more of this emotional connection and more of this emotional drive to achieve something together. Managers are people who are very data-driven, who are very fact-oriented, and who are able to manage a certain situation. So it's more like a chess game for them.
I see.
And the others are like visionaries who like pose ideas, are very motivating.
Okay.
So
like a CEO versus a CEO kind of COO situation. Okay.
Like a manager for me, the perfect manager for me is a CFO.
CFO. Okay.
Because it's like you have your boxes and everyone belongs in a box. And when you have someone like a visionary or someone who's a natural leader, I think it's more like, how can we move forward? And for example, at certain points in my career, I would say I was more of a leader because I didn't care about the leeway. I didn't care about the mistakes that were being made. I just want to, as long as we're moving,
that you were happy
everything is great. Now I have found a little bit more of the detail.
Yeah.
I see that the structure is very fact-driven as well. But I think what I mentioned before, we had money. So in the end, I think if there is one characteristic and one big criticism that I will take out of my years at AP is, you should not just throw money at issues.
It doesn't solve all your problems.
No, it doesn't. But in the like at that point in time, it did.
Yeah.
But in the end, I was like, now knowing how life is when you don't have as much money capacity in a business, that sense, you see how much smarter decisions you make when you don't think, okay, if I pay 5K more, it's done.
And I think this is leads to the question that has been on my mind as you were speaking. What can the other companies who really probably don't have as much disposable like money in the bank to just spend and throw out their problems and probably have more of this competitive atmosphere take from your experiences at AP that they could also use to help them grow in the same way? Are there lessons that are applicable to other industries and less financially successful situations?
I think the first aspect is that whatever you spend money on, you need to know your client first. Before you ever do any social media campaign, or you pay an influencer, or you have a corporation, because these are the things that like cost a lot of money, as we all know, right? Before you do any performance marketing, you need to know who you're targeting. And if you don't know, you haven't done your work yet.
Okay.
because clients are actually, they're very similar, and it doesn't depend if you're buying a diaper or if you're buying a shampoo or if you're buying a watch. They want to be seen. They want to feel special, and they want to be part of something. And if they feel to be part of something, they are much more likable to spend money than when they think they're just a number.
Okay.
So whatever you do not show the client that you're spending money on something that they cannot afford, or that they do not think makes sense for the brand. When you, for example, like I think it's slowed down a little bit, but 2 years ago, you've seen all these cosmetics brands with these huge influencers making a new cosmetics line, which was then, yes, very easily sold out within the first couple of days. But after a couple of weeks, you saw them all in the stores because A, it's not a replenishable product that you need all the time, but also it's only a fashion product or like a passion product at this point. It's not something that you can forward, that you can give to the next generation of clients or something. And if that influencer is not in a hype anymore, if he or she has a scandal, then they're completely uninteresting for anyone involved. And I think it was very, like, this is something like I said, I learned very early at AP. At a certain point in time, they had spokesperson for the brand, and then they stopped. And now they've gone a little bit more into like music, and but they really, really very seldomly use someone as a face of the brand.
That's so interesting in an era where influencer marketing is such a pivotal part for a lot of companies these days.
Absolutely. But I think the trend of having influencers from your, like corporate influencers, is so much more important, because these are the people who work for your brand. These are the people who are actually your brand, who understand what they're selling, what they're producing. You can have a model, you can have a tennis player, you can have a soccer player who are just the hit of being an influencer, right? You can have a young pop star. But he or she or they will always also market other products. How can you make sure that the next product they put on the market is in your brand style, or gives your idea, gives your morals? You cannot.
You can't, yeah.
Even if the contract is completely proof, but you will never be able to completely control other people. So the only thing that you can control, and I think that would probably be the complete outcome, you can only control your input and your output. And you better make sure that the input is worth the output. And you have to be very critical and honest. If the output does not generate as much input or as much revenue as you need for the input, cut it. Ooh. Either it's a zero, like sometimes a marketing campaign can be zero and it's completely successful because you've raised the brand. Yeah. But if your advantage is not raising the brand or it's not revenue, you don't do it. Even if it's a passion project of the CEO, and there were some passion projects I loved, but if it doesn't make money, you don't do it.
Just point blank, period. And that's a tough one, because I know a lot of people get married to the idea. It's like, well, it was successful enough. We did it and there was something. So how was it for you making that tough cut of like, this just didn't give me enough? Was it just down to the numbers at the end of the day? And was it easy for you to just...
like when you have the choice of paying the salaries to your employees?
Okay, we're back to the situation where you don't have enough money.
I think I was always raised in a household where you just don't spend money if you don't have it. So that's the first thing. Like if you don't have it, you don't spend it. If you want to have something, you get the money, you work for it, and then you can buy it to yourself. Like I love to spend money on myself if I have the money. Yeah. If I don't have the money, I just don't.
Fair.
So my base was different. Then I didn't grow up in the luxury industry, so you have a lot of people who like raised from the ranks after they went to school, like they did the apprenticeships and everything. So they were surrounded by money that was always there. For me, it was I was surrounded by money, but it was always my own. So I would not spend something for the company that I would not spend money for, like on a different level for sure, but like comparatively, I wouldn't spend it if I didn't spend it in my private time.
Fair.
So I was always already looking at cutting costs, which is today the one big advantage I have compared to other CEOs. I love to cut costs. For me, it's the most impressive thing if someone is really able to take down cost buckets. Yeah. This is something where I'm like, wow, so cool. Tell me more.
Your eyes even sparkle as you talk.
How did you do that? How did you cut marketing in half? So this is
I
my
love watching
passion.
your
Like
excitement about
taking
this.
money out of the
Yeah.
pockets of the CFOs and putting them back in the pocket of the company.
It's like music to your ears.
Yeah.
I can see it. Like your eyes glow,
Yes.
like sparkle
I
as you
get a
speak about
sale.
it.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think this is so funny. I think also this is like where, because cutting costs also sometimes can mean cutting people. And so this is where I want to kind of bring it back to your leadership experience and maybe bringing it to, we're going to actually go, yeah, we're going to talk about the leadership experience. Because there was two ways that I wanted to go with it, but I'll come to the other one in a moment. Because after the success of being part of AP and really being part of a company that is just growing, 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 then you end up in the opposite situation where now you've got to scale down a company that you've moved to when you went to Chronext. So can you talk about that experience a little bit?
I think first and foremost, it's important that I had already been in contact with the founders of Chronext way before I moved.
Okay.
So nearly a year. And
Why?
I'd met them, and
Okay.
I found particularly one of them extremely charming. And he was wow. He was one of these people, like he enters a room, you're like, whoo. So
Yeah.
I've heard now people tell me I'm kind of similar, which is like you can take it either as a compliment or as a very drastic negative compliment.
Compliment. Very positive
But
compliment.
I've met him.
Yeah.
I met Philip, and I was like, wow, that guy is just so cool. That type of person is something I want to be surrounded with. But I also openly told him, like, they were planning an IPO at that point in time, and I was like, well, I'm in the top 3 businesses in the whole entire industry. Why would I ever go to a startup? Particularly a startup that was in Cologne. At this point in time, I was living in Munich. I never planned to go back to Germany. Like, particularly Germany, Cologne. I was always like, after Munich, I go back to the US. That was my.
Okay.
I had my life plan made out. There was the golden retriever. There was the
There's the
white picket
farm.
fence in the US. It was all planned out.
Yeah.
And then they didn't do the IPO, and I met the second founder, Ludwig, who is the complete opposite. He's I wouldn't say introvert, but like very calm, very collected person. I had a conversation with him on the phone where he was like, "Yeah, I have a couple of issues. Can we have a call?" And I was like, "We're having a call." And like, you remember those times we were sitting in, like, it was COVID. You were sitting in your flat.
Yeah.
You had to move your laptop, so you had a white wall behind you. I was like, I had to rearrange my whole apartment in Munich just to be able to have a professional call.
Yeah.
Because I had been 10 years with the other company, so I never once in my life had to do like a real interview session. So I was sitting there. He starts talking, and within minutes, I text, which you should never. Professional tip: never text or drive, or never text during an interview. Don't do that.
Yeah.
But I was sitting underneath the table, and I texted my mom. I was like, I think I'm coming back to Cologne.
Oh, wow.
Because I'd met this person that I really wanted to work with.
What about it? Because
he was so passionate about Chronext. That was like, you saw it was his baby.
And this was Ludwig.
That was Ludwig.
Okay.
And both of them, it was the baby of both of them.
Yeah.
But the one was always like talking passionately, like moving, like hands, laughs and everything. And Ludwig was just like, this is my baby, and we're having certain topics in operations time, and we need to fix that. Let's discuss if you could be part of that. And I was like, part of it? I want it all. I want to fix it. I want to fix the issue.
And why did you want to fix it? Because you were in a very comfortable position.
Yeah, but I was very bored at that point in time as well, right? COVID came. Before COVID, I was traveling all the time throughout the world, having these different projects. COVID came. I was spent a lot of time in Munich. I supported in retail for a lot of things. But the projects that I had in the past, where they were ever flowing, it was like, everyone was like, yeah, it's a good time to calm down a little bit. And I was like, nah, no.
Like, I'm bored.
What can I do? Where can I create chaos now?
And then you're like,
sometimes I was creating chaos just to fix it, to be very honest.
Why do I like low-key relate to that? It's like it's too much peace.
I still have it today. Like my colleagues in the past at Chronext, like when I start cleaning the office and when I start like cleaning out closets, they were like, you're supposed to do something other. Right? I was like, I was supposed to do like the taxes, but right now I just need to free up my mind. So I like to create chaos and clean chaos when I'm bored.
Okay.
So for me, I was bored. I wanted to do something else.
And did you know at that time that the company was heading towards bankruptcy? Or were you just thinking you were going to
let's call it insolvency.
Sorry.
Excuse me. No, I knew that they were having challenging time because they were still investor owned and always investor based. They didn't do the IPO where they were planning on. I think it was more, for me, they were very open in we're having certain issues of not being as productive enough.
Yeah.
And there might be a point in time where we would like to change the structure of the company. So from the beginning, I knew that they were already in the company for about 10 years. I thought at one point in time, just like as a human being, you understand if someone wants maybe to fulfill a new dream.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, okay, I'm going to go there. And the mission was to work with them to make sure operations was set. And then there were new investors coming on board. So I remember my first day at Chronext. I went in there. It was like bees. It was compared to AP where everything was calm,
Yeah.
smelled nice, like pine cones in the
The Swiss
in
chocolate.
this in Swiss chocolate in the Swiss forest. You came in and everything was buzzing. Like everyone was loud, screaming. Like I went through the sales team, was like, holy hell,
is
they are so
overstimulating.
loud. This is so overstimulating.
Yeah.
Then I walked to the other way of it was a two-sided building,
Yeah.
and it was a workshop. And I was like, I felt home. I was like, it was calm. The watchmakers are like everyone was, for the first time in life, I was not the youngest one.
Mhm.
Also very interesting. Also not in management, even though.
Yep.
And then I started from day one, I started working with them in like the operating business. So like really logistics, workshop. And then all the, like I made my way through the company, but always with, I wasn't done with project one yet, but like I was like,
Yeah.
it was like a rolling stone pretty much. And for me, there was always something to do. It was always, there were a lot of people involved, but even from day one, I saw it was too many people.
Okay. And what did it take to get it to that point where it was out of the mess that it was in? Like what does it take to get it to a good point again? And what does it take to lead people through that? Because that also means a lot of change for the people that are kind of used to it.
I don't think when I did the exit at end of May, I don't think there was ever a point in time where everything was perfect.
Okay.
I think it's still work in progress.
Okay.
At least from my point of view. What did it take? It take cutting from nearly 180 to 50 people in 3 different steps. And cutting passion projects. Very, very honestly, not only mine, but also the ones of the founders, but then the ones of the investors. And getting there it was always a rolling project, because yes, you could see like, okay, it's like my focus is operations in terms of processes, so you can see all these different processes intertwining and changing something, like with the watch, when you say change something on one little wheel, all the other wheels will get conflicted with it, and they were at some point there will be a blockage.
And how do you choose which one?
I think pretty much I just started somewhere.
Okay.
You just start turning somewhere, and when it stops, you know, okay, there's a blockage. So then you take a look at the blockage, where did it come from? We cut a lot of costs by just cutting projects. We cut unfortunately, a lot of costs by cutting employees, where you have to understand, if you plan an IPO, you're already hiring like nearly 30% more than you actually need, because you need to fulfill certain positions to have the book filled, and to conform to the different industry requirements. So taking those people out was, I would say, even mentally hard. It was the easier part. And then you needed to understand, like, then we really got into like deep into the books and deep into the teams, because you need to understand, like, who is creating the most benefit. And and this is something that I learned the very hard way. Benefit is not only performance.
What do you mean then?
I took out people that I would never take out again, because those people were people who kept the team together, even though they were not the most efficient ones. They were the word personality hire,
Yeah.
which I think is unfortunately very negatively
I was gonna say it
connotated.
is very negatively connotated, and most of the time people say get rid of the personality hires if something goes wrong.
But the thing is, they are probably the most important part of the whole team.
I see.
Ideally, you have a personality hire who is very who's very efficient, fair,
Or
and
at least
very
baseline get
and
the
very productive.
Yeah.
But usually those don't always come hand in hand.
Yeah.
But this is the one thing. You need to have certain personality hires in the team, certain characters. Like, a team cannot consist out of the same type of character, otherwise it won't work. Like a good Swiss homemade watch. And this is something that I learned at Chronext. I didn't learn at AP, but because at AP we all had the same kind of drive, but we also didn't have a lot of people to be compared to.
Yeah.
And suddenly at Chronext you had very similar positions. You had a lot of watchmakers, you had a lot of logistics staff, you had a lot of marketing staff. They were all working at the same kind of projects, so they were comparable, but actually they are not.
So you thought they were comparable, but
in the beginning, I only cut on performance.
I see.
And I did that for a very, very long time. I think it nearly came up to filing the insolvency or the whole restructuring processes June last year.
Yeah.
When I realized we already had cut all the people that we could productively cut, like efficient process-wise. And then it came to the point we needed to cut more people, not tremendously more people,
Yeah.
but it now came to a point where we're sitting there, me and the leadership team were like whoever we take out now will have a tremendous effect.
Yeah. And why did you decide to take on the role of CEO, knowing that this is what the company is going through at the time? Because it sounds immensely challenging, but I also don't think from just a work perspective, but it's also on a personal emotional level as well then at some point, especially when you're seeing all the people. Were just emotions cut out of it and it was just really, because now you've gotten past the point where you can cut people off of performance.
I was already introduced to all the financial topics like 6
Okay.
months before. So
Okay.
I never had at this point in time, I didn't have the feeling that I didn't know stuff.
Yeah.
You have to come to terms that in an insolvency claim,
Yeah.
you find stuff you never thought you would experience. So yes, I didn't know all the stuff, but I never had the feeling that someone was actively not involving me or
Yeah.
someone was keeping information from me.
Okay.
And at that point in time, I was already in the managing director position for Germany and COO, and I was already directly reporting to the then existing CEO and the investors. And I have to be very honest, the investors were so clean with me. They were so, I wouldn't say mentor-wise, but they were very open with me. They shared their feelings with me. It was a new, at this point in time, the founders had gone, the investors took over, and I felt valued. I felt honored. I felt seen. I felt honored. And this is a word I very rarely use, but I thought they had given me something I had worked for and I had achieved it, but they'd given me something. And if you give me something, have you ever played the game with the egg in high school? You have to keep an egg alive for an hour.
Oh, yeah.
An hour is actually a time frame where most people ruin it because if for a day you take care of it, for an hour you don't. They had given me something that I didn't want to break. And the founders had given me something that I was very honored in taking over after they had given 10 years of their life for it. And I had never worked for founders. I'd worked for the family business, my own, but also the family business of IP, where it's the same kind of feeling because those people, they build something and then they give it to you. And I wanted to make sure that I was worth it. I was worth it. That I took the responsibility. And yes, I took the CEO position when we were already discussing insolvency. Because I thought no one else could do it better than me at this point in time because I had the trust of the team, I had the trust of the team and the employees, I had the trust of the investors. And I was the last one standing in terms of who was willing to take the challenge. And yes, we could have given it either over to the state, which is the normal procedure, not doing it in self-advocation, or I could have asked them to hire someone to do it. But for me, and there we come to the self-proclamation of I'm an overperformer, it would have felt like I lost something. It would have felt like I failed. And
If you didn't take it on.
if I didn't take it on, because then I would have taken a step back.
Yeah.
And what would have happened if the other one succeeded? Someone else could do something that I could not.
Impossible.
No. How? Just not possible. I'm just the best choice for the project. For me, it was always something, it was a challenge. It was something that I wanted to prove for myself that I could do it.
Okay.
I was very, like, now looking at it like a year later, I was too naive. Because I thought I can do it. I have done anything else in my life, so I can do that as well. I was too naive, but I've also had tremendous help during the way. So it was the insolvency lawyers, the all administrators, but all the investors at the point in time who gave me everything I needed to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And also they gave me the trust. Because if a 33-year-old tells you, I'm going to take your company that you have paid so much money for and that has been invested in nearly 150 million during 10 years, and I'm going to take it into an insolvency and everything will be better.
You gotta trust them. There's a whole lot of trust.
Well, I would have told you no.
Yeah. And I think this is also then bringing me to this question because once again, you brought back the people who trusted you, the people who really put you in, like, gave you the honor of taking this on. So looking back at your whole experience, how would you say that your leadership style really evolved over the time, especially because you did say there was a lot of male influence over that time? Did it change drastically? And then the second question would be, how did that influence your personal leadership for yourself? At what point did you know it's time for you to take a step back for you?
I mentioned a lot of people trusted me. I think it's very important to know that I don't trust people.
Ooh.
This is just something like I trust the people who are closest to me. And even in the last couple of months, I've realized that I probably trusted the wrong people as well.
Okay.
I just don't trust people because I always believe I can do it better. And this is something that's somehow appeared along the side. I cannot even, like, if now a therapist would be sitting here like, how did that manifest in your childhood? I cannot tell you because I have a loving family, loving friends. But at some point in time, I decide I'm better off myself. And this is something that I also learned with AP, that yes, I mentioned it was a big advantage being a part of a bigger team, but also I never really felt like I completely belonged somewhere because I was always all these different projects. It provided a solution for a need I had of being needed. I really have the need of being part of something, but it never gave me a home. So at Chronext, I found a home. So I was rescuing my home, right? Nevertheless, I didn't trust people. So I trusted people as far as I could throw them. I love the sentence, as far as I can see them. When I can still see you in the distance, I'm fine. As soon as you cross the corner, I'm like, right behind you.
Because I just didn't expect that from you, to be honest.
I'm right behind you. That was me a year ago. I was like, I wouldn't say micromanaging, but I was controlling as hell.
And that was how you led throughout
That's how I led
career.
Everything through my entire life. That's how I still lead my siblings.
Like, stay where I can see you.
I wouldn't say control them, but leading them, managing them.
Okay.
So this was something that I was still trying to keep all the balls up in the air. Like, I love these different phrases of like, you're trying to keep everything afloat. And I knew at that point in time, everything was somehow still up in the air. But I knew at a certain point in time, when I do not pay attention, something will fall down. So out of need of not wanting to fail, I had to hand over topics.
Okay.
It was never, to be very honest, it was never the programmatic, like, I'm just going to do that. I'm going to be so efficient. I'm just going to hand over and delegate. Nah, I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't keep as many projects alive at the same time. So I had to hand over topics. And then I handed them over to people who had never betrayed me or who had never shown me that my trust was not efficient and not put in the right person. Was I friends with them? No. Wild. Okay. I've been always the person who like took business and private completely separate.
This is so interesting.
Just to keep myself to keep myself safe, because if one of the things would have failed, I would have still had the other side, right? So it was always like I was trying to create a balance, but at the same time, I was just creating a big boundary between them.
Did you think that was the right thing? Now, looking back at it?
No.
Okay.
But that is the male leadership I had. Because do not have other people look into your cards. Be the strongest one, be the loudest one. If you shoot first, the other person doesn't get a chance to shoot. If you are faster than the others, you will be faster on top. So that was the kind of leadership I had, which brings me to the speed of where I came. But it didn't give me the strength behind it, because at that point in time, I realized, and it was very clean. It was, someone took me aside from the team and they said, "You are cold." And I was like, I had never been told that.
Yeah.
I had even much rather in my private life been told, like, do not trust other people, that like, do not get so close so fast. So I was like, okay. Then there came like the strategicals. Okay, they think I'm cold. Do you yourself trust cold people? No, I don't. I know I'm approachable. So how do I present myself to be approachable? So I started very strategically opening up to people who talk to other people. So I talked to person A and told them a private story of mine, and I knew that this person could not keep their mouth shut.
That's very calculated.
It was very calculating, but at the same time, I think it was the little, I needed to give a little to then realize it was working. So for me, it was more like putting my feet like in the water. Is it cold enough? Yeah. It's working. You're working. So you get a little bit.
You found the office gossip and you were like, I'm going to just drop something and see
Yesterday,
you spread
I spent so much time with my friends and she was telling it to everyone. And I did, then I did the same. Like, I opened up to certain people in certain positions, telling stories about my private life, about situations I've had. And I saw how those people got more effective, more efficient. They opened up. On the other hand, we had more of a relationship, right? So I didn't, nevertheless, up to the top, very professional, but I let loose a little bit to the bottom, to the other people, like working not underneath, but with me in the team. At a certain point in time where insolvency was, like, even up until today, when you hear the word insolvency, you think you're done. Actually, 80% of insolvent companies do not ever go bankrupt.
Oh, beautiful.
Because in
Nothing like that.
Germany, it's an extreme mechanism of rescuing some kind of the industry.
Mhm.
So, but that you don't know because you only always hear the bad
Yeah.
I word. So that's why we didn't call it an insolvenz. We called it Sanierung.
Okay.
Because for us, it was
It's like a
important to
cleanup.
understand we want to renovate this company, to restructure it, and then
Yeah.
sell it, like to make sure it still exists.
Yeah.
And that's the story we told my colleagues, and we were always very honest about it. And at that point in time, I realized I'm very transparent in criticism. I'm also very transparent in praise, but I'm not transparent in strategy or what's going on. So I started to just tell them everything.
Mm.
For me, as a private, very private person, it just felt good to not be able to share and not to be needing to like keep everything so close to your heart and keep it inside and trying to like not to implode. As a business move, in times when it gets really, really tough, you need to tell them it's close to the end. Because A, it will not surprise them as much. And B, it will make work so much easier if you can just tell everyone what's going on and they will just decide how they handle it. Because I realized that I took a lot of decision making from anyone involved. Because by not telling them certain things, I didn't keep them informed. So they were not being able to make their own decision on how they want to handle it. I made the decision for them. Like I said, a little bit controlling. Tiny little bit. Older siblings sometimes. But and so I learned to be more empathetic and to be more understandable and to be more open by other people giving me that emotion. I get it from others before I realized I could give it to others as well. So it's like a replication. It's like the mirroring effect.
Yeah.
And then I realized it's just actually way more my leadership style than I thought because it made life like it felt so much easier not knowing. I didn't lie, but I kept secrets.
Yeah.
And I still think like as a CEO or as a leadership position, you need to keep certain secrets just to make sure that just because a Monday has a bad sales day doesn't mean a Tuesday has to be.
Yeah.
But if the last 3 months have been bad sales days, they need to know. And they need to know what the outcome could be.
Yeah.
And to be standing in front of them and telling them we are going into insolvency, and they didn't know, like only I think a couple of people actually knew, only the people I needed to actually claim. Even management didn't know until the night before.
Wild.
No one knew. And to be able to stand in front of this team, telling them the truth and telling them I'm going to be here, that was the one I needed. I needed to be the one to tell them I was here, and it was good for the team, but it was also good for me and my karma.
Yeah.
Because I could have probably I probably would have never taken such a high position again if I wouldn't have not followed through on that one. Yeah. But in the end, understanding, and that's where we come to the point where you ask when was it time for me to take a step back.
Because you successfully got them through that.
We got through insolvency. We sold the company beginning of December. But from day one, when we sold the company, I knew it wasn't my home anymore.
Okay.
Because I had come to I had come to the point where I wanted to come. I had succeeded. And I wasn't happy.
Why?
I didn't feel comfortable with a new leadership, like with a new buyer. I was feeling, I still, up until this day, have a way closer relationship with the old investors than they have to the new one. And it wasn't my fight anymore. I was, at this point in time, for me, it was very important to understand that a couple of months ago, I told a friend, I was like, but I've worked 15 years to get here. And he asked me, did you really work to get here? Is this really what you worked for?
And your answer?
I was like, nah. Nah. There wasn't even a no involved. Nah. No, but it was like, did I work for this? No, I worked to get to a title. I worked to get to a position. I worked to get to a feeling. Yeah. I always thought as a CEO, you felt highly accomplished. And at this point in time, I was like, I'm just done.
Yeah.
And when you're just done, and this is the same kind in any kind of relationship, may it be a business relationship, a private relationship, once you're done, I'm done. And this is something that my character also has, right? The complete rational thing. If I don't feel it anymore, I'm done.
Wild. And so now you got to the top of the mountain. You got to see the view. You felt that you were done.
I tried to discuss with myself for 6 months and I wasn't done. I tried to find new projects. I tried to find new challenges. I tried to find a different way of leading to maybe, I told myself, well, now you can enjoy leadership. Now you can actually have like holidays and you can have weekends. And nevertheless, even though I tried to find the balance that I've never had before, and I took those trips and I took the time off, I realized that I wasn't happy. And so I just I exited everything 30th of May
That's very exciting.
because I was done.
Yeah. And I think that's incredibly self-aware. It's probably extremely nerve-wracking to also be like, okay, everything that I've worked towards, everything you got to your goal, and then you were like, I think I'm just done. And then you have this point of what now? And I think also from everything you said, there was just so much self-awareness that came from it. So how do you think this self-awareness really now shapes the way you want to work and the way you want to take care of yourself moving forward? Especially you mentioned the word balance. Does that look different for you now?
I think what I mentioned before is balance for me will never be 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
It will also never be I'm done at 6 p.m. and then I will
Mm-hmm.
just enjoy my evening. I defined balance for myself. I defined that an work-life integration,
Mm-hmm.
as they call it, the cool kids call it now,
Yeah.
is much more my style than a work-life balance. Nevertheless, even though I said I was done, just because you decide you're done doesn't mean you're done, right? Your body doesn't accept it, your mind doesn't accept it. And I thought like, okay, so it's beginning of June, I'm done with my job, like I'm out of it. I did the exit, I did the handovers. Now I can sleep. I have been sleeping for 4 hours for the last 10 years each night. You will not, in the beginning, you will not go to 7. You will not go to 8. The first 2 months were hell for my body because my body understood. My mind really wanted to change. It was like,
Yeah.
I need to sleep better, eat better, be in contact with my friends, enjoy the time. You know how drastically I was trying to get off my phone
Mm.
and I couldn't. So you just start to replace those bad habits. Like you sleep the same kind of amount, but then you just watch like TV series for days on time. You want to be less on the phone, you start to be very much on social
Yeah.
media,
So you're just
right?
hardwired the
You're
way,
just,
yeah.
your body, it takes about 2, 4, 6, 8 weeks for certain of
Mm-hmm.
your habits to change, right?
Yeah.
It takes even more work to unlearn stuff or
Yeah.
uneducate yourself because your mind knows that what you're doing is not right, but your body doesn't doesn't
Yeah.
like is not as fast in like changing the timing, doesn't change the habits, doesn't change the routine. The routine, that's what
Yeah.
the word I was looking for. Your routine doesn't change because you decide it's gonna change.
And can I ask, like, we're getting towards the end of the conversation, so I really have like two main questions. If you don't mind me asking, do you feel like all the sacrifices were worth it?
It was absolutely worth it because I got where I wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
I got there much faster than I wanted to go. So I
Mm-hmm.
think I sacrificed much more in the last couple of years than I would have probably if I would have deployed it over like 15 years.
Yeah.
I would say yes, because the trip to get here was fun.
Okay.
Even though it was a lot of work, it was always fun. I was always happy. I loved work. My hobby was work.
Mm.
So yes, it was worth it. Nevertheless, the price was high. And I think for me, if I would do it all again, wiser, older, smarter now,
Yeah.
I would probably start making a little bit less plans, living a little bit more in the moment, and learning more about myself along the way. Because now I have learned about everything about myself in the last year. If I would have been a little bit more intuitive to myself and listened to myself a little bit more, I think a lot of the symptoms that have gotten me to where I am right now,
Mm-hmm.
like the status quo right now, I could have already learned 10 years ago. So I would change a little bit, but I wouldn't change that much, to be very honest, because I would, even though right now I'm sitting here quite relaxed, like I've found a new being.
Yeah.
Well, if I get a new, like if I provide a new job and if I enter the new position I'm currently planning on, will the hustle and bustle be back? Yes. I hopefully it will only be back by like 80%, but
Yeah.
it will be like I will always be the high strung person that I am usually. So
Fair.
I'm relaxed Frederike right now, but business Frederike is coming out again. So
She's still in there.
she's still in there.
And for the people listening to this conversation that we've just had, especially current and future business leaders, what would you want them to leave with?
If you want to get where you want to be in 10 years, if you want to have a position like that, you need to work more. There is no way around it. But you need to work smarter as well. And I think there are so many different opportunities for self-awareness, for self-education, and for also mental health right now that there have ever been. And the access is so much easier, like through the internet, but also through professionals. If I would have started that 10 years ago, I would have been a mentally healthier person along the way, and I would have still gotten there. So you will get there if you have the drive for it. You just need to make sure that you don't burn out throughout the way.
Okay. And with that, thank you so much for this
Thank you so
conversation. It was so
much.
insightful. Really appreciate you taking the time for it.
Always.
Appreciate it. Thanks. Thanks for listening to Behind the Click. If you enjoyed this episode, follow the podcast and leave us a review. It really helps others discover these stories and helps us to notify you when the next episode goes live. Also, remember to join us at E-commerce Berlin Expo in February to keep the conversation going. We look forward to seeing you there, and until next time.